Okay, good. All right, so it's recording. So how good? Maybe this is a simple things. I ask you a question in English, and then I'll translate to her. How's that? Because I have basically a list of questions that I already sent you yesterday.
Sounds good, mate.
Okay. So the first question is, please introduce yourself, and including affiliation, title, and your career in sports nutrition.
Okay, thank you. My name is Drew John Campbell. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia. I started my career in sports nutrition at a very young age. If I backtrack further than my work history, I started lifting weights and exercising and drinking protein powder at a very young age of 12, 13 years old in Australia. So you could say that that's when my industry experience started, because I think, like Seiji, you work in this industry as long as we have been, and Seiji, like myself, has a lot of experience because we love this industry and we love to help people be the best they can using performance nutrition. So that's where you could say I originally started, but I'll allow you to translate, and then I'll go into my actually work history.
Okay. 名前は、ジュリュー・ジョン・キャンベルです。メルボルン、オーストラリアのメルボルン出身で、スポーツ栄養との関わりは、一番初めはだから12歳から13歳ぐらいの時に、実際に、筋トレをしてプロテインを飲むっていうことを始めたんで、そこからと言えるでしょうということです。OK。
ありがとうございます。
Good. So, at a little bit older, when I was an adult, originally my qualifications were not sports nutrition, but actually marketing and public relations. And I was applying for jobs in marketing and advertising and public relations, but for whatever reason, I didn't get my dream job. But because I was working out all the time, and I spent a great deal of time at the local supplement store, at the local General Nutrition Center, GNC. I'm not sure if that's in Japan, but it was the largest supplement / sports nutrition retail chain in the world. So I began working there in the year 2000 is when I first begun working at the GNC. And I was a natural bodybuilder and working out and doing a lot of different things. Seiji, do you want to translate that?
Yeah. 仕事的にはもともとはマーケティングとか PR の出身なんですね。それで、そのエリアで仕事を探したんですけど、あまり、あったということで、ただ GNC って知ってますよね。サプリメントのでかい会社があるんですけど、そこに出入りしてたので、GNC に2000年から勤め始めました。Okay?
Thank you. So yes, so that's where I started my career per se. I was, it was year 2000, so I would have been 23 or so. And I was a little bit older than 23. Sorry, no, I was about 25. But anyway, enough about age. But I started doing that and I absolutely loved it because I was able to help people with their nutrition and at the same time teach myself more about nutrition, because you can't teach others about nutrition if you don't know. And this was really before the internet days, so I couldn't go on Google and all these articles and all these amazing things we have now. I had to use books. So I would have many books on nutrition and well outside just sports nutrition, but also herbal and naturopathy and a lot of natural healing herbs and things like that. But also I had to learn a lot more about sports nutrition. So that was in the year 2000.
それで、もともと栄養のことを詳しくなかったんだけども、栄養のことを勉強することによって、その知識が自分にあるから人にも伝えられるということをしてて、すごい楽しかったと。で、 そういう形でハーブなんとかも含めて栄養の知識を一生懸命本で勉強した。当時はインターネットとかそういうのなかったので、本当に本で勉強しましたということです。はい。Alright, good.
Thank you. So, at that point, I became very obsessed with nutrition and everything like that, and I needed to learn a lot more in regards. If I wanted to be great at my job, I needed to know more about nutrition. So I read a lot, and I also worked a great deal for a number of years working with very highly qualified naturopaths and very highly qualified at that stage physique competitors, to the point where I eventually began learning more about things than themselves, because again, I was obsessed with understanding nutrition. So that's where I got into it. And I had many mentors, again, more than 20 years ago, many mentors that were very highly skilled naturopaths and nutritionists that became my personal friends and much older than me. There was one gentleman, Dr. Mekele, in Australia. He was one of my best friends, but he was my grandfather mentor. He was 70 years old. He cured himself of cancer using many different natural remedies. And he taught me a great deal. This was, again, 20 years ago.
で、結構その本当に栄養にのめり込んでて、で、特にナチュラル系とかハーブ系にすごい興味を持ってて、いろんな人に教えてもらったということで、自分よりも年取った人とかからも、たくさん学んで、もうどんどん栄養にのめり込んでいったということです。Okay?
So that's kind of where I begun as a younger adult and even before younger child, but I always still loved the industry. But the other part of me is that I was always very entrepreneurial, and I always wanted to do more things. Partly when I was in Australia and working for GNC, I actually won an award. I was the #1 service and sales in all of Australia in the year 2002. So that was all of Australia. I got a big award for being the #1 sales and service in nutrition back then. Do you want to translate that, mate, or do you want me to continue?
で、そうやって栄養にのめり込んでいった反面、やっぱり自分の、仕事的にはやっぱり企業的なところなので、そっちの方で GNC でも2年目にオーストラリアで#1のセールスをやったというような記録を持ってるらしいです。
Yeah. So the other side of me, apart from absolutely loving nutrition, is I was always very entrepreneurial, and I did some small businesses in Australia. And but I could see Australia is my favorite place in the world. I absolutely love Australia, and it's always my home. But when you're a young entrepreneur, and I'm not the only one, Australia is a big but still an island, and sometimes there's less opportunities in Australia. So I could see in Asia, and actually I did consider moving to Japan as well, by the way, because I could see there was a lot more growth potential and opportunities in Asia. And as before Seiji came on the call, I actually knew a little bit of Japanese. Not much, and I certainly forgotten most of it, but I was considering moving to Japan, but instead I chose China with no Chinese language at the time, and eventually founded our very first business, which was supplements and sports nutrition in China, which was now 14 years ago, or nearly 15 years ago.
で、オーストラリアもいいんだけども、市場的にも非常にまだ小さかったってことがあるので、海外に出ようってことを決めてですね。で、日本に移住しようかってことも考えたらしいんですけど、結果的には中国に行って、サプリメントの会社を立ち上げて、いました。で、それがもう、14年前に、スポーツサプリメントの会社、サプリメントっていう会社を立ち上げたらしいです。はい。OK?
Yep. So our first company we founded in Beijing was called World Health Store, WHS. And we were literally We weren't the pioneers in the industry. We were the pioneers of the pioneers of the pioneers. We started very, very early, and we were importing. Some of your readers may have heard some of the big brands, but BSN by Glambia, Optimum Nutrition also by Glambia, Dymatize Nutrition. A lot of these brands we not just imported, but we were the first to import these big sports nutrition brands into mainland China. And also we were working in other parts in Hong Kong and Taiwan. So we were working in the greater region. So that's what we did for 10 years. And it was extremely deep and steep learning curve running business in Asia. It's a very different culture, but it nonetheless taught me a great deal. And I'll allow you, Seiji, to translate, so I don't give you too much.
That's good. で、初め作った会社の名前がワールドヘルスストアっていうので、北京に作ったんですけども、主にその海外製品を輸入して、日本でも最近出始めているようなプラントを含めて、そういうものを輸入して、で、中国で売るということだったんだけども、アジアでのビジネスのやり方っていうのはだいぶ変わってるんで、いろいろと痛い思いをしたという。Okay?
Thank you, mate. Yeah, if I ramble on, just, let me know and I'll just give me a hey, Drew, and I'll settle down a bit. So we did that for 10 years, but a big part of what I felt was missing in the entire industry in Asia at the time, the biggest part was the fundamental difference. And I'm not sure how different in Japan on Japanese's original understanding of nutrition, because sometimes it's a little, not necessarily wrong, but just different. Like in China, they use a lot of traditional Chinese medicine. So what is hot and what is cold and the color of the fruit or the color of the vegetable and associated with those health things. And maybe Japan has some older things as well where it's different. And because of that, then we found a lot of personal trainers and a lot of just general people just didn't understand why they needed amino acids or why they needed protein or what was the reason. And there was a lot of misinformation where they thought, if I drink protein powder, I'm going to look like Ronnie Coleman. I don't want to look like Ronnie Coleman, a gigantic bodybuilder, So there's a lot of misinformation. So we really felt our next journey after I sold that company in 2017, our next journey was wanting to be in education.
いろんなビジネスやってたんですけども、特にその時の中国の、スポーツ栄養の業界で、なかったものっていうのがやっぱり教育のところ、なぜそのスポーツ栄養学的にこういったものを取らなきゃいけないかっていうことが全く分かってないし、それを、やるのが次のフェーズだろうということで、そのビジネスを売った後に教育、スポーツ栄養の教育に手を出すということ。Okay.
So a big part of my old business, World Health Store, was education. In fact, we trained our staff. We did a lot of seminars. At that stage, it was so people could understand the products more. But in 2015, we actually begun talking. This is way back in 2015, so nearly 8 years ago. We did have some brief discussions with the ISSN because we viewed the ISSN as being the very top when it comes to being the authorities in sports nutrition, education, sports nutrition research, and really setting the bar on what is science-backed versus maybe not science-backed, or at worst case, bro science and has no scientific literature or backing. So we began talking with the ISSN in 2015, very briefly, myself and members of my company at the time. But then when we sold our company in 2017, in 2018, we re-engaged with the ISSN and started the new venture.
で、初め2015年に、当時からそうなんですけど、やっぱり、スポーツ用でも世界中のトップであった ISSN とコンタクトし始めて、それで、可能性を探ってたわけなんですけど、17年に、前の会社を売った後に、本格的に ISSN と話を始めた。Okay?
Yeah. So, in 2018, we begun. We've done a lot of education before, but nothing certification like courses. We hadn't done that to date. And the ISSN, as Joey, not Joey, as Sajay well knows, is the number one when it comes to an organization and group of experts throughout the world, including Seijay, who's an expert from Japan, but global research and global experts. And then they do global seminars. For example, the ISSN seminar that was just held recently, very successful in Japan, but there's the big one in America in June coming up. And in many countries, especially prior to COVID, there was in Italy and UK, Australia, everywhere. They're very, very good in the academia world. But what I didn't realize at the time, they actually didn't have any course or education themselves. So more, they are the leaders in the academia, in the research, in the journals, in the position stands, but they didn't have that that business side when it comes to courses and education, which is really different as well. And this is what I think we've made such an amazing partnership with the ISSN.
で、ISSN はもともと結構アカデミックな団体で、こういう認証みたいなのはあったんだけども、それだけであって実際に教育とか授業、セミナーとかそういうのはコーディネートするのはうまいんだけども、あまりその教育プログラムみたいなのオファーしてなかったんですよね。そこで、GPNi がそういったものを授業をオンラインでやって、で認証を取らせるっていうようなプログラムを ISSN とパートナーシップを結んだと。はい。Okay?
Yep. So at first we begun in English, putting courses together. So the very first course we put together in 2018, it took a long time, almost 1 year to create the first course, because we had to work with multiple experts throughout the world, double check all of the content, ISSN experts and everything like that. And then we started doing offline in 2018 and also 2019, offline sports nutrition specialist, the SNS ISSN certification. That's when we began doing it in English and also in some other languages as well.
で、2018年にそういった、事業を、作り始めたと、ISSN と一緒に。で、初めはオンラインじゃなくてオフラインで実際に部屋に集まって授業をやるみたいな形の形式の授業をずっとやってて、そういうことです。はい。Okay?
Yeah. So we were traveling throughout the world. This is prior to the lovely COVID-19. We were traveling a lot to Thailand, to Korea, Taiwan, and many other places. And so we had in English, Chinese, and Korean language, doing it offline. And it was very, very successful. Very good business and growing exponentially. But one problem I had was I was not home very often. It was on some months I was out traveling 3 weeks of the month. Wasn't very good. So when COVID-19 happened, we were very much forced to dramatically change what we did and how we did it.
で、これコロナの前なんですけども、そういった事業を、フェイストゥフェイスでやる事業をいくつかやって、韓国に行ってやったりとか、 台湾に行ってやったりとか、当時だから英語と、それから中国語、それと、韓国語、そういったものの、授業をやってたということで、結構それで、いろんなところに出張行ってたんで、ほとんど家に帰ることがなかったというような大変な時期でした。はい。Okay?
Yeah, so in 2020, because we had no choice, we reinvented the business to be online. And at first it was difficult, but actually it turned out to be in some ways a lot better because it allowed us to do everything from one place without travel. It allowed us to open up new markets and new languages without having to be there. And so then we started doing that and eventually launched the portal, the Global Performance Nutrition Institute, or GPNi, which you can find on www.thegpni or gpni.fit, a new URL we've got. And as I'm sure your readers will shortly know, that we also have the Japanese language with our Japanese exclusive region partner, Seiji, and his amazing PhD experts launching the end of April. So that's going to be very exciting for Japan.
で、コロナのせいで、オンラインでやることを、ほぼ強制的になったんだけども、実はそれがいいことで、別に出張もせず、一箇所で、いろんなマーケットに対して、この事業を提供できる、講座を提供できるっていうメリットがあって、2020年からオンラインで、やる方向にシフトしたということで、日本は僕と一緒にパートナーをして、組んでこれをやってるということです。Okay?
Yeah, so so that's what we do. I guess the main difference of what we do compared to any other education or certification, there's a number of differences that I think the readers would be not like to know, and Seiji, of course, already knows these points. But firstly, we work with the elite level in sports nutrition. We don't work with bro science or Instagram celebrities in nutrition. We literally work with the academics that wrote the research, wrote the textbooks on sports nutrition. By doing that, you've got the most authentic content that is up to date with the most cutting edge sports nutrition research and science. And although there are other sports nutrition, so-called sports nutrition certifications out there, they are likely to be copy paste from the original research, which is from our partners at the ISSN, or not very accurate because it's outdated.
ISSN の違うところは、実際にその研究をやってる人たちがこの ISSN というグループの中にはいて、で、自分たちのデータ、ものを作った方使って事業を構成してて、で、それはもう流行りのインスタグラマーとか、インスタ映えするような、なんていうの、流行りの人たちの、プログラムじゃなくて、本当に研究をやってる人たちによるサイエンスベースの、スポーツ栄養の事業であって、ネスタさんなんかも同じようにやってますけど、結局それは ISSN の学会発表になったものとかを使ってる、コピペしてるような感じのものも結構多くなったりするっていうので、やっぱり ISSN のそういった内容っていうのは、オーセンティックなものであるということです。Okay?
Yeah, so that's the content side, which is very, very important. And we are the exclusive partners for the International Society of Sports Nutrition for their two certifications. As I mentioned before, the Sports Nutrition Specialist, SNS, which is level 1. And we are just launching this year in English and Chinese language, the CISSN level 2 Masters, which is also a very famous other certification, the top level by the ISSN. We're launching that also this year online.
で、実は ISSN には2つ、認定の資格認証プログラムがあって、1つは今回日本語で出す SNS ってやつなんですけどね。で、もう1個はその上のレベルの、cissn っていうのがあるんですが、それは、英語と中国語で今年に出ます。で、日本はちょっとまだ未定ね。
青柳さんがやるかどうか。
そうそう。だけど、とりあえず今年その、ISSN のやってる SNS と CISSN は英語で、完全に出るというようなことになります。
Yes, and I'm sure next year, if we if everything goes according, we'll have CISSN level 2 available also in Japan and in Japanese language as well.
日本語でもやれということです。
It's actually very, very popular. Also the SNS.
Translation.
Okay,
good. I think you covered what GPNi is all about.
I was just going to cover one other point, Seiji, if you don't mind. So that's on the content side, but the other component, which is extremely important and what really separates GPNi as an education business, is we really try to master having an online but offline field classroom. So students, a big component of learning and education, a huge component is having that real network classroom experience where you can ask the expert directly a question. You can ask your friend next to you in the classroom directly a question. And beyond just learning, you create friendships, you create network within your community. And as I'm sure in Japan as it's the same everywhere in the world, sometimes in life, if you want to grow your career, it's as important, if not more important, who you know, not just what you know. So at the GPNi, the Global Performance Nutrition Institute, we really put education a 360-degree experience with our online experience, and that we do that with an exclusive Zoom chat group and many other components where there isn't any barrier on the learning and there isn't any barrier on the country or the access to experts. It's a true immersive education experience that, quite frankly, is not available, not just in sports nutrition, but in very, very little fitness education in the world as well.
それで、GPNi っていうのは彼の会社なんですけど、もう一つ大切にしていることは、オンラインで授業をやるんですけど、それをいかにオフラインでやってるような雰囲気を作る。でそれは、受講している人同士のコミュニケーション、受講している人が、エキスパートに質問ができるとか、そういうような仕組みを、作って、オンラインだけどオフラインでフレンドシップっていうか、そういうなんていうの、友達感覚できたり、ネットワークができたりとか、そういうのを作る仕掛けを作ってる、ということを大切にしているっていうのが、今までのその教育をやってるところであまりないだろうということで、それを大切にした仕組みを今作り上げてるところです。Okay?
Thank you. That's about it. Unless you have any other questions or anything at all, please ask. Or Seiji, if you would like me to, if I've missed anything, please let me know.
Yeah, I think I could explain about the ISSN in the article, so no need to ask you that. What about how about you mentioned about the webinars by ISSN? Which
okay. Yeah,
was not mentioned. Sure. Yeah. So
yeah, sure, man.
What other offering that GPNi has?
Sure. Yeah. So, you know, a big element of who GPNi is we don't want any borders or barriers. It doesn't matter about language. It doesn't matter about time zone. It doesn't matter about country you're in. At GPNi, you can access the elite experts on sports nutrition all online. and with our local region partners, for example, in Japan, in the local language. So another component we are exclusively working with the International Society of Sports Nutrition is the on-demand content. The on-demand content. So the ISSN, and we'll actually be working with some other experts that also held seminars that actually are from the ISSN, but they do their own talks. We will have other on-demand content that are available where the elite experts talk, but they're only talking in English. And also it's in America. It's very difficult these days with COVID to travel anywhere. And also the time zone difference and the language difference. So exclusively on the GPNi through the GPNi TV, that's GPNi TV television, we have an on-demand component, which will also be launching in Japan with Japanese subtitles that all students can watch wherever they are, whatever time they are, and in their local language, they can catch up with the experts on the GPNi TV on-demand content.
もう一つ GPN が進めているのがオンディマンドで、もう少しいろいろなプログラムを提供するっていうことをやってて、で、特にそこの中で重要なのはその受講する人がどこにいようとどんな言葉であろうと、分かるようないうふうにしたいので、日本ではそのオンディマンドの、ちょっと短いウェビナーみたいなのなんですけど、それは、日本語のサブタイトルつけて、日本人でも受講できるようにしとくみたいな感じのものをいくつかこう用意して、それは特に今 ISSN の、先生方中心に作ってるプログラムですけど、比較的短期的なやつで、それを、集約して GPNi TV っていう GPNi テレビね、GPNi テレビっていうチャンネルを作って、そこにたくさん、格納して、いくらか払うとそれが見れるみたいな感じの仕組みを作ってます。Okay? Good?
Thank you. Do you have anything else? Do you have anything you'd like to ask me or I've missed?
No, I think okay, you want to talk about the localization and especially when it comes to like a regulation.
Absolutely.
And
That's
food
a great
guidelines. Yeah. So
sure.
how are we going to approach that?
Sure, absolutely. So a very good question, CJ. So a big component, and this goes into our whole, there is no borders, there is no language barrier with the Global Performance Nutrition Institute. The biggest component is we are an international certification. However, the international certification, meaning global experts, elite level, but fully localized. And the only way to fully localize, meaning to bring an international level education close to the hearts and close to the minds anywhere in the world, is with local partners. So for example, in Japan, same as we have in Singapore, same as we have in Australia and New Zealand, same as we have in Taiwan and in China, and early next month, we'll be making an announcement for the United Kingdom in England. The only way to do that is with a local partner. And do you want to translate and then I'll continue a little bit on that?
で、GPNi のプログラムは、要するにボーダーレスであって、言葉も、関係なくインターナショナルなプログラムなんだけども、それをローカルに落としていくというところを、そういった各国のパートナーとやっていくということで、これはニュージーランド、オーストラリア、それから、来月にはイギリスでも同じプログラムを立ち上げるんですけど、そういった形でローカルパートナーがいて、で、グローバル、インターナショナルな中身なんだけども、そういったパートナーによって、カスタムされて、そのローカルのことを反映していくというやり方をやります。Okay?
Yeah, because every country, and in America, there's no different, not just in every country, but every state, every province has a different regulation, has a different law on what you can do as a trainer or a coach or a nutritionist, what you can't do. There's, in some countries, you need liability insurance, and you cannot do that And also there's the language, which goes without saying. I mean, Japan, if you have English language only, you're going to have maybe 10 people in 10 years. Same as Taiwan, same as China, and same as many other, and Korea, same as Korea. So you really have to have it localized. And in Australia, as an example, we have a student that just signed up for the SNS. And the first thing she's asking is, what CECs, continued education credits, can I get in Australia? And the other thing they say is PDPs, professional development points in Australia. And what liability insurance does your certification cover in Australia? Now, I'm Australian, but I'm not in Australia. So we have our local partner that gets all of that regulation, all those CECs, all of that liability insurance. He organizes. So in what we are is the best of both worlds. If you're just a local company, then you don't have necessarily the elite level international experts. But at the same time, if you're just an international company and you don't have that localization, you're also lacking that side. So what our business, the GPNi Global Performance Nutrition Institute, is really the best of both worlds, which again is something I don't think any other company has yet done in most countries.
GPNi の、さっきから言ってるようなグローバルなプログラムは、やっぱり、ローカルに持っていかないと意味がなくて、ローカルの人たちの、頭に入る内容で、外国のものをすぐ持ってきても、それは結局は当てはまらないことが結構あったりとかして、で、ローカルの会社でやっても、それはグローバルのエキスパートには、こう入ってこれないじゃないですか。だからそういった意味で、GPNi っていうのはグローバルのエキスパートとそれからローカリゼーションをこうマッチングできるんで、非常に何もないようなプログラムが完成するということです。
Yeah. As an example of that, in Japan, CJ, you may have to correct me on the point value, but one of the biggest certifications in Japan is the NSCA. And the only way to get the CECs, continued education credits, is through the local Japanese NSCA partner, which Seiji can do. I can't do. No one outside of Japan do, and actually very few people in Japan could do. But so our courses have the NSCA CEC accreditation, meaning they can get points for doing our courses. And Seiji, maybe in the article you can elaborate on that.
いや、で、日本でもね、ご存知の通り NSCA がプログラムをやってますけども、それの、CC、障害教育のポイントに関しても、そういうローカルのパートナーシップを組まないとそういったものを作れないんで、今後僕もNSCA と話をしなきゃいけないんですけど、そういう、なんていうのかな、ことがローカルのパートナーとはできるということです。
これ一つ質問してもいいですか？
She has a question?
Sure, go ahead.
ありがとうございます。Thank you. ごめんなさい、日本語なんですけど、これ日本の今度要請っていうか、告知しようとしていることっていうのは、基本的には英語で受けるんですか？ラーニングみたいな感じで受ける。
Okay, so she's asking. I have not really described to her what this SNS Japan version is going to look like. So let me explain to her, yeah?
Sure, go ahead, mate.
僕何やってるかっていうと、スライドはすべて日本語です。で、700枚あるんですよ。
はいはいはい。
で、モジュールが8個あって、その中のスライドが700枚。あって。
じゃあ、ビデオっていうわけじゃない。
いや、それで、動画は、英語のスライドを使って、外人の先生が話します。それで、下に日本語のテロップが入ります。
はいはい。この間のセミナーみたいな。
そう。だから、教材は、プリントした教材、スライドは日本語。で、動画は、ビデオは
あ、青柳さんが消えそう。
後ろに英語のスライドが出るけど、ついてる？大丈夫ですか？
なんか、青柳さんのネット環境が悪いって書いてあります。
本当だ。
ああ、消えそう。大丈夫かな？
大丈夫かな？大丈夫？
今はまだ大丈夫ですけど、やばいって書いてある。
やばい。だから、この間の学会みたいに、
はいはい、
やるんですけど、
はい、
印刷した
はい、
スライドは日本語全部になってます。
はい。
Okay, good.
I'd like to add one component. I think it's extremely important in the localization, which I think is extremely important to add, that also in Japan, we will have eventually local lecturers and experts as well. So eventually, after I think some of the two experts have their CISSN, which we can discuss, Seiji, but they'll be able to do offline as well as online components with the course as well. So again, best of both worlds. You've got that international high level, but also fully localized. And these some of Seij's lecturers, including Seiji, who's a very elite level sports nutritionist himself, which I believe you can explain in more detail who they are, but they are very high level, very well respected sports nutrition experts already in Japan, but they will also help teach some of the curriculum locally in Japanese language as well.
で、将来的には今一応2人スポーツ栄養士と一緒にやってるんですよ。
はい。
で、彼女たちが将来的には日本で、そういったもうこのコースをすべて日本語でできるような体制も作っていきたい。Okay?
I see.
Thank you.
Good. I think that covers what we want to put in the interview article.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any comments, additional comments, Drew?
No, I think we've covered everything. I'd be more than happy to do it again or have a regular column if it can be translated. I'd be more than happy to work. I believe your magazine is the very best, what Seiji has explained to me. So I would be happy for myself or our organization to contribute as much as we can, because the number one thing we like is passion and sharing about the area we love, which is performance nutrition, science-backed performance nutrition.
That's good. 今後もね、NEXT がやはりトレーナーに行ってるメディアでは一番あれじゃないですか。だからぜひいろいろと協力させてくださいということで。
ありがとうございます。ぜひお願いします。
継続的になんかこう、
そうですね。
コラムを書いてもいいし、いうようなことに言って
そうですね。コラム
海外の情報とかね。
コラムぜひお願いしたいです。
Yeah, so Drew, she might be interested in for you to do con.
Sure, I'd be very happy to.
And then you could introduce like foreign information, not because people will be interested in learning what's happening outside of Japan.
I understand.
So,
not a problem. As long as Seiji can help translate for me.
Yeah.
My Japanese is not great, but I'd be more than happy to contribute with you guys. Again, Seiji says a lot of really good words about what you guys do. And I think it would be wonderful to collaborate further together. I'd be happy to.
いや、もうぜひ、一緒にやれたらいいと思う。
はい。ぜひお願いします。ちょっとまた、青柳さんを通じて。
Thank you.
はい。OK。じゃあ、そういうことで。
ありがとうございます。Thank you very much.
Alright.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew. That was good.
You're welcome. How do I say you're welcome in Japanese?
Yes, thank you.
Don't touch my mustache. どういたしまして。
Don't touch my mustache.
Don't touch my mustache. どういたしまして。どういたしまして。
I know sayonara.
I'll say goodbye.
Thank you, guys. Wonderful speaking to you. I look forward to doing it again.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Seiji, for translating. You're very good. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.